And you said how many jobs approximately?
Well, there are 5,600, approximately 5,600 jobs that are direct jobs on the fort, and then there are thousands, literally, depends on what stage certain projects are at, but there are literally thousands of contractor jobs that are impacted potentially.
Mr. Harrison, we'll get into the plan soon because I think that's probably the most critical part. But in terms of the approval of the plan, it's now, as I understand it, been approved by all of the municipalities, all the planning boards of the affected municipalities. But where does the plan stand now in the approval process?
Well, first of all, it's been reviewed by the municipalities, but we had to accept their comments, but we didn't necessarily have to incorporate their comments into the plan.
Did you incorporate their comments?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
With almost little exception, we incorporated the comments. So, in effect, they really didn't get to approve the plan. But in their role sitting on our authorities board, they did get to approve the plan. The plan was approved.
So the mayors of all three towns were on it?
The mayors of all three towns. So the authority approved the plan in September 2008. It was submitted to HUD and the Department of Defense. HUD is the only organization that can actually reject or approve our submission.
Now, when you say HUD, you mean the Department of Housing and Urban Development?
Housing and Urban Development. BRAC law requires that we consider the needs of the homeless with the redevelopment of any surplus federal property. And it's quite a complex process that's dictated by this law that we had to go through to screen requests from homeless providers where they would ask for accommodations, land and buildings currently existing on Fort Monmouth to accommodate the needs of the homeless. And in our case, the area of catchment that we had to consider was Monmouth County. So we were looking at the homeless needs in Monmouth County and how we could best accommodate those needs through the redevelopment of the fort.
And that's required by the BRAC law?
That's required by BRAC law.
Okay,
yes.
And has HUD approved that part of the plan?
We understand that HUD is actively reviewing our submission at this time. Our submission is about 1,100 pages. It's a document about this thick. It contains verification of the needs and priorities of the homeless in the county, documentation of the entire process that we went through, including the transcripts of the public hearings, legally binding agreements for those accommodations that we actually decided to go forward with. And the most critical part of our homeless submission that HUD looks at is our balance statement, how we appropriately balanced the needs of the homeless with the economic redevelopment needs of the communities. And that's what they're going to focus on.
Mr. Cosentino, once HUD presumably approves it, or if they make recommendations or changes and then it's approved, what's the next step for the plan?
Well, then once we've received the approval from HUD, then we are free to sit down and begin our negotiations with Department of Defense on the property itself. There has been a position taken early on in this BRAC round that the Department of Defense wanted fair market value for any of the closure properties. Well, of course, fair market value is an interpretive statement, as we all know, in real estate. And certainly, fair market value in whomever's mind has changed dramatically with this change in the economy. So we are looking forward to finalizing our strategy with regard to the disposition of the property. There are a number of different approaches that may be taken, and we're looking at every one of these possibilities.
Okay. We're going to go to a short break. Please stay with us for more about redevelopment of Fort Monmouth here on Outlook Monmouth.
Hello, my name is Max Weinberg, and I'm a musician, but most importantly, I'm a parent. I'd like to speak to you today about a subject that's very important to me, and I know, of course, that it's important to you, our children. To best understand the challenges that our children face every day, well, I'm going to ask you to go back in time and remember the challenges that you faced as a child. How did you handle the bully in the locker room? How did you handle being left out of the group in the cafeteria? Do you remember who first tried to get you to smoke a cigarette, or try a beer, or a joint? How did you handle peer pressure? These are just a few of the challenges that your child faces every day in their young lives. How did you know what the right choice was? Prevention First is a nonprofit agency in Monmouth County that offers educational programs dedicated to strengthening the foundation of our children's lives.
Welcome back to Outlook Monmouth. I'm your host, Armen McOmber. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the redevelopment of Fort Monmouth. We have with us today two representatives from the Fort Monmouth Revitalization Planning Authority. Frank Cosentino serves as the authority's executive director, and Rick Harrison serves as deputy director. Welcome back to Outlook Monmouth. So, Mr. Cosentino, maybe give us an idea of an overview of what the future has in store for Fort Monmouth. Detail the plan, if you could.
Sure. Well, the plan had to address a number of critical issues. Certainly the jobs, as we've talked about. It had to address and understand the transportation and traffic impacts of a redevelopment of this size. It had to address the potential infrastructure impacts on the communities and the fiscal impacts that might be in store for these communities. And it also, we wanted it to address the creation of open space for the public at large to utilize. So we set about to address all of these things. These were the questions that we asked ourselves. How can we address all of these things? And with the assistance of our consultants, we created a plan that flows from West Tinton Falls to the east, all the way to Oceanport, that address the needs of each of these communities by working with their planners in each community to ensure that there was a flow from what existed into what will exist. And what will exist, hopefully, will be the creation of a mixture of homes, no McMansions. That's not a part of this plan at all, but affordable homes.
I'm glad you said that, because again, you do hear a rumor that the whole thing
Sure.
will be conveyed to a large developer who will put up
that is not the case.
Large single-family homes.
We are working with each of the communities again on zoning, the appropriate zoning for the properties that will go to these communities, and so what we wanted was the proper mix of commercial and retail, but in community settings with the affordable houses in the context of affordability, general economic affordability. And so that's part of it, and that theme carries all the way through. We also recognize that we had a gem of a golf course there with Gibbs Hall, which is a magnificent facility. That will remain.
Conveyed to the county, or will it be a private golf course?
No, we anticipate that it will be sold to a private owner. However, one of the things that we will insist on is that it remain available for play to the public in general, and I think that we'll be able to do that. And being a Tillinghast course, to you golfers out there, that should tell you something of the quality of this golf course.
Famous golf course
Yes.
designer.
The retail portion, which is not very, very large, will be along Route 35 in Eatontown, which is the appropriate location for that, and in the form of a lifestyle center. And as we move further east, again, there's a mixture of community and recreation, which all goes to the theme that we wanted to create, to work, to live, and to recreate in this 1,126-acre parcel.
And there's one other overlay to this plan, which was a challenge that we wanted to address, and that is how to maintain and honor the history of the place